Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Aura Ordóñez Molina. I am the Latina Engagement Fellow for Walker's Legacy. Named in honor of Madam C.J. Walker, Walker's Legacy was created with a mission to cultivate an ecosystem of access designed to inspire, equip, and engage a global network of professional and entrepreneurial women of color. You can learn more about Walker's Legacy by joining us online at www.walkerslegacy.com. Every month, we set up a masterclass where we host a Latinx person of influence who has achieved success in their respective field. These masterclasses aim to offer inclusive insight on how Latinx are cementing their legacy and paving the way for inclusivity in different industries. So let's get started with today's program. Today's guest is Lili Gangas. Lili is the Chief Technology Community Officer at the Kapoor Center for Social Impact. The Kapoor family of organizations works to remove barriers to science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM, education and tech careers for underrepresented people of color. Lili's work is centered at the intersection of technology, economic justice, and action-driven partnerships to tackle pressing social and economic inequities of underrepresented communities head-on. She is a founding member of the Innovation Services team at Booz Allen, specializing in crowdsources, price challenges, and open data solutions at the federal level. In addition to that, she is also a senior multidisciplinary software engineer at Raytheon Space and Airborne Systems. Lili has been recognized as San Francisco's Business Times Most Influential Woman in Business and SF Business Times 40 Under 40, and is also an MBA lecturer at Mills College. So welcome, Lili.
Hi, thank you so much. Excited to be here and excited to be in dialogue and meeting you all.
Thank you so much. We're so excited to have you as well. So with that, I guess I'll get started. My first question for you would be, what do you feel was your first introduction to the world of tech, and how did you really get started into this journey?
Sure, definitely. I think for me, maybe for a lot of the folks who are listening to this, my story is the story of an immigrant. And so I'm a proud Bolivian immigrant. I immigrated when I was about 6 years old to Southern California. And I think the reason why I share this is because for many years at the beginning, math was my language. And so I was really interested in solving math puzzles and doing those type of like nerdy things, right? Really early on, but that was actually the way I was able to engage with other students. Not until I was able to, fully be able to speak English and be immersed in that environment, I didn't have that opportunity. So that I was able to just really continue to foster that curiosity, but also be able to have it as my language. And I think what was really important about those times is that, and for those who are of immigrant backgrounds, I was able to get accelerated into a lot of the pathways that really led me to become an engineer and eventually enter the technology sector. Just very early on, being able to, and I remember my mom, I'll just share a quick story of my mom when I took, I guess, I forget what those standardized tests were, but they were like, oh, your daughter's doing so well. She needs to, maybe we should skip a grade and et cetera, et cetera. And then my mom's like, no, we're gonna let her do what she needs to do. But ever since then, I think my mom also was making sure that she was very engaged in my education and created opportunities and helped me get into magnet programs in high school. And I would say that that's probably a little bit of the first introduction of the world of engineering and STEM. And it actually took somebody that looked like me, a young Latina woman that came to my classroom. I remember I think it was my junior year, they gave us a book about engineering and technology and the related STEM careers. And I was like, oh man, I really love electronics. I'm going to go and do electrical engineering. And little did I know, fast forward when I went to actually study that at USC, it was very humbling because I think that's where I also saw the importance of having access to hands-on building, being able to have access to maybe parents who that had that background. I think I saw myself in a theoretical space, and then now here's the opportunity to learn how to actually build circuits. And so I think for me, that being able to get down into the weeds, into this world of that, it was just a whole different world than a lot of my other friends at that time when we were undergrad. And so I think that being able to see that connection of the math and the algorithms in itself and how it actually physically lives has been part of my first introduction into the world of tech. But professionally, I would say that degree in electrical engineering is what led me to actually make a pivot into software engineering. So when I started Raytheon Space and Urban Systems, they had a really unique program that would bring people who were of math majors, science majors, engineering, electrical, and then computer science, and we would all work together to be more like systems engineers. And that's where I really saw the opportunity to build large systems and how complex they were. And I would just say that for the folks who are thinking about their careers and what it's like, I think especially for me, going back to the immigrant story, I think for me, the career in technology really changed my life. I think that first job that I got with very little work experience, if any, I was making 2 to 3 times what my mom was earning working 2 jobs. And so just to give you an idea of the power of economic mobility that a career in the world of tech can provide, but also the different step-by-steps to actually discover if that's something that you also would like to do.
Absolutely. It's unfolding, ever ending. And, some people would argue that math is just the universal language for a lot of people. Right. So moving forward to that a couple years after, can you tell us a little bit more about your leadership style and philosophy in an everyday work environment? What does that look like for you? And what does that mean?
Yes, I think this is such a great question. I'm actually in that evolution period where I'm like rethinking like what is my leadership style at the moment, and what have I learned from the past? Where do I want to go into the future? And I would say that again, going back to my mom, right, and then also that story, because I did grow up in a single parent home, and so a lot of my leadership style was learned from my mom. Seeing my mom be the one driving, the one providing. And just seeing a very strong Latina woman, regardless of her limited language as well, and just being a boss. And so I think just seeing her strength and power, I think was something that I saw early on. But I would say that a little bit of my leadership style, as I've seen it and reflecting, is actually, I think I was very influenced from when I was younger, like back in high school. I think being able to, when I had some of my first opportunities to quote unquote lead, was being the captain of my soccer team. And you may be thinking like, what does that have to do with careers? I think a lot of your first innate experiences with leadership come from those moments where you really tap into your intuition, right? And I think being able to then evolve them with the right skills and develop them and adopt into the different environments that you are in a position to lead are really critical. And so for me, reflecting on that and the work that I've done in the past, I have really seen myself being an empathetic leader. I really want to make sure that my teammates or whoever I'm collaborating feel that they can express their creativity, feel that they can drive the work. But I have also learned through experience, and sometimes in the harder way, that it's really important as a leader to make sure that you're providing guardrails. Being able to provide a vision that is inspirational is amazing, but you have to make sure that you are also providing a next 2-3 levels of depth of how can that vision be executed and what are those measures of success, and does the team have the right buy-in? And I think that buy-in is really critical, because otherwise everybody develops their own vision, and then now you have so many cooks in the kitchen, and it starts to become a power struggle where it doesn't need to be, right? I think being able to have that aligned goal and then letting the genius of everybody really align towards that larger mission is something critical, and it's also a skill that I think being able to be a leader who is also developing other leaders. I think that's a lot of opportunity for me that I'm also looking to be able to get even more experience and training. And I would say, especially for those folks who are working in intergenerational teams, I think it's super critical to making sure that we understand, kind of like, you know how in relationships you have your love language. You want
Right.
to
Yeah.
make sure that you understand what is the language of your current team and what are the skills. How do they feel seen? How do they feel heard? How can we actually have difficult conversation? And creative tension, for me, I think is critical to be innovative. But how do you have the dialogue? Because sometimes a lot of words may have different meaning for different people, and so how do we also set some of those norms up front? And I think that that's a key skill for a leader. And for me, it's something that I've also, through experience, being developing and seeing what that next evolution of my leadership is.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Lily. So that leads me on to my next question. As far as my research goes, women and specifically minority women in the tech industry make up about 1%. I want to ask you, how has your unique background, you mentioned your mom, you mentioned your background as well. How has it prepared you for success in the industry? And what made you pursue this career after knowing these stark statistics as well, once you were there?
Sure. I would say when I started my career, specifically as an engineer, I didn't have the language that we have now. I didn't have this understanding. There wasn't the data, right, that we get to see now of who's represented, who's not, and at what roles. For me, I think it's something that I've actually learned through Caper Center's work. It's understanding the systemic issues and the barriers and being able to see those clearly. Now I have a language for it and I can express myself. But when I first started, it was one of those things that unfortunately I had gotten used to being the only, not even the Latina in the room, let's just be real.
Mhm.
And sometimes not even the woman in the room. It was just being the youngest person in some of these rooms. And how are you taking serious? How are you also given assignments that are not just things that other folks just don't want to do and they think that they can give it to the younger person? And so I think for me, just looking back, and again, it's that a little bit of that immigrant mindset and that I reflected is good, but it's also not in your career, right? Which is sometimes we're like, all right, we're going to figure it out. We'll get it done somehow. And sometimes you burn yourself out. Or sometimes you think like, this is what I have to do. I have no choice. But I would say that I think now also just being able to have been in different rooms where I have seen and started to really get out of the fear of asking questions. I think it's and I'll just share a quick story. I just
Mhm.
reflecting back when I was in these rooms that felt a little intimidating, right? Because again, the youngest person, sometimes the only woman, and then definitely the only Latina in that room.
Yes.
I was like, all right, I'm sticking out, but I'm really curious about the problem we're solving. And somebody's not asking the right questions. So then what I did was like, you know what? The question I wanted to ask, I just heard somebody asking, and I had been we were like in this product, we're reviewing the code. And then I remember I'm like, oh, I wanted to ask the same question. And ever since then, I decided and I told myself, I'm not going to be in the fly in the wall anymore. If I go into a meeting or wherever I go, whatever positions or rooms I'm in, I need to speak up if there is something that I think it's of value. And so I really took that opportunity and embedded it into what I from there on. And I would say that I actually learned it also the hard way because when I first got passed for my first promotion, when I was back in my engineering roles, it was because I wasn't quote unquote tooting my own horn enough. I wasn't vocal enough. And so I learned that and I was like, all right, I'm learning how to get out of like the really humbled mindset and being like, okay, let's talk, let's create something and have a little bit of a little bit more of a presence. I was still unique to my voice, but letting them know that I'm here and I have questions and I want to make the product better and I'm here. And so I wanted to make sure I had my place there, right? And so I think that that's something important and why the success, right? Because a lot of the times when we don't feel seen or heard, or we feel that sometimes we're not being provided the opportunities that other folks are doing. At least when I was there, we didn't have the opportunity to discuss this. Now I think that there's just so much more resources and tools and mediums and opportunities is something that's so much valued. And this is why I really give it up to all the Gen Zers. So if there are Gen Zers who are watching here, we know y'all are pushing, and it's really helping change some of this corporate culture. And I hope to continue to see it because I really do think it's important. So I think that there's going to be even more success for a lot of those entering the opportunities, entering the workplace. But also I think being able to make sure that you focus on the problem you're solving, that you ask the right questions. Ask the questions, and especially when you're first starting, is your perfect time to just ask all the questions, right? And then after a while, you want to make sure that you are also doing your homework, that you are continuously learning, that you are making sure that you understand the business that you're in, and continuously to develop your technical chops as well.
Absolutely. Lili, when you were in this journey and during the come up, did you have one interesting job that really stood out to you and that really just kind of cemented those passions? And if so, what was it?
It's a great question. I would say that what I'm doing right now is probably the most interesting job, is the one that is continuously evolving, but it's also the one that is continuously bringing back a lot of parts of the skills that I gained over my career. So once I did the engineering, I basically left that industry because I was actually building missiles. I didn't even know. I was working in a classified environment, and I'm like, I have ethical issues with this as a person. I'm not going to do this. So I actually left engineering because of that. If there had been other maybe opportunities locally to where I was at in different types of tech roles, maybe I would have stayed in that path. But what I ended up doing is really following my passion, which is how do we use technology for good? How can we use technology to close those gaps of access, improve people's lives? And so I've always been that's been my North Star, but I needed to understand and have the language of the business. So I left and got my MBA. That's where I also discovered more of the social impact business models and funding and all that stuff. So I was able to do also a MBA internship at a startup that was based in India and Santa Monica. And that really opened up my eyes of, first of all, the startup world. How do you actually use technology to close these gaps of access? In this case, was being able to provide credit scores for micro entrepreneurs. But the complexity of India as a politics in the country was huge and overwhelming for me. But I knew that this had something of what I wanted to do. So I then pivoted into innovation consulting, more or less at Booz Allen and Accenture, where I got to really still go back into the tech side, but definitely much more from a strategic perspective. And I would say that all of that was still missing the core of like, who are we building for? How is it impacting those communities? And I still didn't see myself, especially as a Latina, reflected in any of those decisions, despite specifically in the US, we're the fastest growing demographic. We have some of the youth segment is one of the most fastest growing as well, right? And so there was this huge gap. And then that's how I got introduced to the Caper Center, where now I get to really bring all those different pieces and be able to help our community move forward into where the future is going. But it needs to have our voice, and we need to be at the seat of the table, which is why I'm here, right? Which is why I'm here with you all to share the story and encourage more of those that are listening to do that.
Thank you, Lili. I love that you mentioned your journey. I love that you mentioned the ethics component and what really grounded you all along. So is there an advice that you would give to Latinx people looking to break into the field of computer technology today? Something that really resonated with you and you kept all along?
You got to be a continuous learner. And what I mean by that is make sure that you're understanding the evolving model, the business models of the technology sector. As we've seen now in this COVID environment, whether we were ready or not, especially as a Latinx community, where we know there's still a lot of gaps of access to broadband, computers, digital skills. For those that have access, it's really critical that you understand that we're really at a transition point. I think that there's going to be an opportunity here for a lot of real progress around technology, but you need to understand the business side. And be able to stay on top of those trends. It's evolving, it's changing. Technology with what we just experienced over the last 4 years, and just even from the January 6th attacks, the discussions about the responsibility of the tech companies and the products and the implications in real life are really critical. And so some of those business models and technology is going to continue to get regulated. So stay on top of that. Learn the business. How can it be changed? How can it be different? And then also from that level, get to the next level, which is understand the product development cycle. Especially in technology, there's some product that's being pushed, whether it's a service or like an app or something. There is something that's being developed. So understand what that product development cycle entails. And then I would say also understanding what the product management and marketing strategies entail. A lot of the times, especially with some techies, there's bias to be like, well, you must be an engineer, and that's really how you're considered a techie. I disagree. I specifically now, where technology is embedded in so many industries and so much that we do, you have to understand the psychology behind the marketing strategies. Why are they doing this? And then also, as you start to look at some of those products that you love, start with a product that you really enjoy, that you love, and use it as a case study. And then also see it like, how is it actually culturally relevant to your needs? Is it? You'll actually see a lot of opportunity. And this is where it's my plug for the folks who are listening. There is so much opportunity for us to leverage our culture and technology to solve the problems in our languages, and things that resonate with us, that are actually authentic. And there's so much innovation yet to be discovered and created. And so I definitely double down on some of those problems. You'll see that there's a lot of cool things, but they're not relevant. And I would even say that, are they going to be relevant as the demographics of the consumers change? So I would just say that. And then the other part too is something that I've actually been getting more exposure to and doing more explicitly now with the Caper Center, is taking a look at the role of tech policy. When we try to think about what's happening in the macro level, which is the geopolitics, maybe people are like, oh, I don't want to hear about it. You have to. I think it's really important to understand all the moving pieces, so then that way you can be able to stay informed, because that's where you'll see a lot of the rationale and opportunities that haven't yet been realized. And so I actually would make a plug here as well for folks who are interested in learning more about policy and tech and racial and social justice. We need you. And this is where we need all the folks who did all the different types of liberal studies, folks who did psychology, law, etc. We need all that type of mindset to really be interested in this area, because it's going to take it's up to us. Otherwise, we're just going to repeat the pattern of what we just saw these past years.
Absolutely. Lili, what's been the greatest transformation in technology that you've witnessed in your career? And what are your thoughts on the next transformation in the tech industry? What does that look like to you in your eyes?
I see automation as the big one, and automation can take a lot of different forms, and we already started to see it. And eventually, when it gets into the other side of the world, which is the algorithms, right, and getting more into the sophistication of those algorithms, and then you get into the artificial intelligence, I see that as the biggest tech lever, both good and bad, I'll be honest. I think on the positive side, there's a lot of labor that should have been a long time ago automated, because it's physically not healthy. It's also maybe not good for the environment. It's not cost effective. Maybe we should be moving to more sustainable models, right? And so there's a lot of opportunity there. But the same flip side is also, okay, those jobs are going to disappear. How are we creating new jobs? And what are those jobs tackling? What problem are they solving? And for who and how? And what are the unintended consequences? So I do think that this is a trend, not necessarily a trend, but it's a big, another cross point in technology, where specifically in artificial intelligence, the bias that exists, the lack of representation in who is getting to design, and the types of questions and use cases that get thought up, if you don't have that diverse group of people at the table, you're going to keep getting it wrong. And we've seen so many of these examples already. But what's also important, I want to raise the flag, that is a lot of these technologies are already being rolled out. And even during COVID, they've actually been accelerated even more. And these are things about healthcare, finance, education. And so I do think that it has an immense power and it can move, and it has shifted a lot of the types of businesses and just even behaviors that we all have. But it cannot go on regularity. It cannot go without some level of oversight. And the other part too here that I think it's important, and it is a transformation. You didn't ask if it was a good or bad transformation, but it's a transformation that I think it's really important for us to elevate, is that there's a bifurcation of income. The wealth gap continues to increase. And when you take a look and split it by racial groups, and even if we start now after COVID and we start to take a look at by regions, there's my concern is that there's this rise in what, I don't know if the blue collar tech roles is the right terminology, but there's a lot of new opportunities for people to enter technology jobs. But I want to make sure that you take advantage and learn, but go to the next level, continuously go and build your career, because as technology continues to move, those jobs that you may be in right now may evolve and disappear, which goes back to the advice that I gave earlier. You have to be a continuous learner. Be curious, learn about the market, understand what's happening globally. In this world of COVID and the way we're communicating, anybody around the world with an internet connection and the link can see it, right? And so open up your eyes in that perspective. And so that's why I really do think that artificial intelligence is at the cross point. It needs us, specifically Latinx, because the majority of the people who are going to be displaced are Latinx. It's estimated about 1 in 4, according to McKinsey studies. That means your tia. My mom got displaced. I technically got displaced when I was working at Raytheon doing software engineering, when they rolled out this new software that the stuff I was doing little pieces by pieces ended up doing it by itself. And so just it is something to keep a pulse. Other things that I think are really important for our community, specifically Latinx, we never get to talk about money. And so I want to make sure that you're also thinking of what's the trend in the fintech sector. And of course, crypto is something that is starting to become more mainstream. So I would highly recommend y'all do that. Check out Suma Wealth as well, which is founded by Beatriz Acevedo, who's providing this fintech education in a more cultural relevant sense. But think of yourself as investors. Where is this fintech? Where are the fintech opportunities? And then also another technology to put on your radars is the blockchain technology, which brings us into this world of decentralized power and more transparency that can be applied in a lot of different use cases. And when I first got introduced to it, like maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, it was this vague concept, but now I can definitely start to see it more. And so definitely stay on top of those. If you don't know what they are, definitely just go and Google them. There's a lot of information out, so definitely nerd out on that.
Awesome. Thank you, Lili. So I guess this would be one of my last questions. So what are you seeing and what are you hoping to see with organizations that have a social mission like Kapor Center?
I hope that we continue to see more of these types of organizations that are working in collaboration. I do think that it's an opportunity for us to be doing more coalition building. And I would say for the Latinx community, that is one of the hardest things. We unite around different issues, but we also have to address our own anti-Blackness. I think that there is a sense of still, and I would say between different generations, there's still that uncomfortable discussion of being had about race and racism, even within our families, colorism, classism, machismo, which is the one that I'm like, I can't. I think that there is a lot of opportunity for different organizations that have that expertise to come together and be able to also now apply and adopt the tech policy platform and really, really think about how is technology impacting these type of problems that I was trying to tackle. Can we use it to maybe have a better dialogue and create new skills, etc. But I really, especially in the Latinx community, that was one of the inspirations behind LTX Fest, which is the largest Latinx and tech festival that we hosted. And it was basically like a baby of mine for the last 4 years to see it from a summit to now like being the largest gathering of Latinx and tech. And because of COVID, it actually allowed us to go from a very local West Coast to now being actually national. And we even had folks internationally join us. We had over 7,000 people that registered for a 4-day event. which is bananas, right? But the whole goal there was to show that, especially for our Latinx community, we have innovators across. We have those venture capitalists that are out for Latinx. We have our entrepreneurs across all the different sectors who are using technology for good. We have raw talent that is looking to enter and change. And then we also have this immense power if we collaborate and move towards an issue for advocacy. And so we made sure that LTX Fest had a specific call to action around election. And I would say like some community partners like Voto Latino, their numbers were just, historic. And I would say that we all played a large role in being able to where we're at now and helping democracy move forward. And so I would say that that's what I would like to see more of, subject matter experts in different areas. And then we come together around specific issues for a larger change together, because that's what's needed. Resources are scarce. There's a lot of families in need. We got to put our egos aside and really think about what is the longer term, and have a little bit patience of that as well. I think that's the part that I've been humbled in all of this work is you may have the vision, there's mechanics, there might be resources, but people are at different starting points. And so I think it's being able to always lead with that empathetic approach and having patience and being humble along the way.
Awesome. Well, Lili, thank you so much for taking the time to sit with us and with Walker's Legacy, and for this absolutely insightful conversation. How can people stay in touch with you, viewers who are watching?
Yes, definitely. Follow me on Twitter, on LilsG31, on Instagram, Lils the Explorer. Probably need to do better titles for all of this. And definitely check out the work at the Caper Center, stay informed. And I'm also, LTX Fest is going to come back. So look to see you there. I also want to make sure that you also check out other organizations like Tequeria, Latinas in Tech, other organizations doing really great work on the philanthropy side, like the Latino Community Foundation. There's so many. So definitely follow me so I can get you connected and we can continue this dialogue. And also feel free to connect on LinkedIn as opportunities arise.
Thank you so much, Lili. Well, Walker's Legacy Programming looks to bring you insightful, meaningful opportunities for conversations like this and community. And we hope that you found today's conversation a special hangout opportunity and you also got to learn a lot. And we also hope to see you at future Walker's Legacy programs. You can visit us at www.walkerslegacy.com for any future activities. Thank you so much, Lili.
Thank you.